These children represent God. They're the most innocent and like God, and that's why the devil wants to kill them, wants to hurt them. It's always been this way since Pharaoh, and then to Herod, and to now, but more than ever.
Epstein Island isn't the only sex island out there, and Tim Ballard takes down one of the film.
You're 7 years old and someone is stroking your it feels good.
Right.
Even though you don't have a name for what that is, it feels good.
We have a darkness around us right now. We could lose our republic. Are we going to let our children go? And that's a question, and people have to answer. And I think they're onto this. And the way things are going to be done now, it's going to be changed from this point on. There's going to be a new direction in this country.
What if the woman the world calls mom is actually the most dangerous gatekeeper in the history of media? For decades, we've looked at Oprah Winfrey as the ultimate symbol of truth, healing, and philanthropy. But according to Jim Caviezel, that image is nothing more than a carefully crafted mask designed to hide a darkness that would make your blood run cold. We're not just talking about bad business deals or typical Hollywood drama. We're talking about explosive allegations, unsealed documents from the most infamous island in history, and a trail of victims that stretches from the hills of Montecito to the villages of South Africa. For years, the gatekeepers have controlled the narrative, deciding who gets to be a hero and who gets buried. But the silence has finally been broken. Jim Caviezel just dropped a bombshell that could end the reign of the media queen forever. And once you see the connections, you'll realize that the world's mom may have been the very person making sure the monsters stayed hidden.
You know, when we were down in Cartagena, the guys would come up and they were, you know, right in front of us, ask us if we wanted niñas or niños, and little boys or little girls. And people think that that's not something that happens here in the United States. Well, absolutely it does. Over 300,000 children under the ages of 18 were into the deepest recesses of hell, and it's disgusting that the media hasn't covered it like they should.
To understand why Jim Caviezel is risking his entire career to expose Oprah, you have to look back at the war that started behind the scenes of his hit film, Sound of Freedom. This wasn't just your typical Hollywood production. It was a project that the industry elites desperately wanted to see fail. Caviezel revealed that the movie sat on a shelf for 5 long years because major studios refused to release it. They claimed there was no market for a story about saving children from the dark trade. But Caviezel tells a different story. He says the pushback came from the very top. When the film finally hit theaters and became a massive success, the reaction from the inner circles wasn't one of celebration, but of absolute panic. Caviezel specifically hinted that groups led by figures like Oprah Winfrey and Tyler Perry were doing everything in their power to delay or block the film. Why would anyone want to stop a movie about rescuing innocent souls from the deepest recesses of hell? According to Jim, it's because the movie draws a direct line to the people who facilitate these operations. He describes it as stepping into a war where the stakes aren't just box office numbers, but the souls of the children the elites have been using as currency.
This movie has a power because it goes into your heart and it asks you a question. You know, when this is all done, what do you get? And what are you gonna do? You're gonna have to meet God at some point. And I believe it's going to move a lot of whistleblowers to come forward, but not one. In the hundreds, maybe thousands of them worldwide start coming forward and telling the truth of what's really going on.
But it wasn't just the delay of the film that raised eyebrows. It was what happened during the early screenings. Caviezel recalled a specific moment when the audience, without being prompted, started shouting about Epstein's Island. It was as if the public already knew what the mainstream media was trying to hide. For Jim, this was the sign he needed to go all in. He realized that the gatekeepers like Oprah weren't just protecting their friends, they were protecting an entire system. When you look at the sheer amount of money and influence Oprah has used to shape public opinion, it becomes clear that she isn't just a talk show host. She is the PR machine for the global elite. If someone in that circle does something horrific, they don't go to a lawyer first. They go to Oprah to cleanse their image. But as the Sound of Freedom proved, the public is waking up, and the gatekeepers are finding it harder and harder to keep the truth from leaking through the cracks.
There was talking going on. And I was like watching the audience going, second time it happened. Again, third time, talking in this one particular spot. And I'm thinking, what, did we do something wrong or something? But so then one more time it happened. At the end, I was asking about the movie, and I asked them about that one particular part where everybody's talking, and they all cried out Epstein Island. And I went, oh, okay. Now I understand what we're up against.
Caviezel uses a very specific and chilling analogy to describe what we're up against. He calls it the 8-armed octopus. He explains that trafficking, grooming, and the dark things happening in Hollywood aren't isolated incidents. They are all connected to a single head. If you cut off one arm, like the Epstein operation, another one just grows back. To truly stop the madness, you have to take the head of the octopus. And Jim believes that head is made up of the most powerful media figures in the world, with Oprah being one of the primary eyes. This network thrives on what he calls reputation laundering. Think about it. Whenever a high-level predator needed to look human again, they landed a primetime interview with Oprah. She used her platform to validate people who were later exposed as the worst kind of monsters.
This thing is just the beginning of this whole thing. It's an 8-armed octopus. And if you take just out, that arm will grow back. You have to take the head. And we're talking grooming. We're talking about, because procures more, and then it's a non-stop cycle. So this is a culture that has to be reawakened.
But why would she do it? Is it just a coincidence? Or is she a part of the machine? Caviezel suggests that this culture of validation is a non-stop cycle. The media moguls procure the public's trust, which then provides a smokescreen for the predators to operate in plain sight. This is a culture that has been meticulously built over decades, using confession culture to make people feel like they've seen the truth when they've actually only seen a script. Jim argues that the media has lied so many times that they've lost the ability to tell the truth even if they wanted to. He sees a world where the saints in heaven are looking down, wishing they were on earth right now, because there are more souls to save than ever before. This isn't just a political battle for Jim, it's a spiritual reckoning, and in that reckoning, the people who used their voices to cover for the darkness will be the first ones to face the light.
Why are they so opposed, so frantic in antagonizing Sound of Freedom? What's going on here?
Well, I'll give you an example, Charlie. We were about 4 years ago, we showed a movie, and this has been a 5-year deal. And they've done everything they could to stop it, as they did this with The Passion of the Christ.
But if you think this rabbit hole stops at media empires and Hollywood sets, you're only seeing half the monster. To truly understand the 8-armed octopus that Jim Caviezel warns about, we have to look at the political shadows that stretch all the way to the top. And that leads us directly to the complicated, often chilling history of Donald Trump and his alleged ties to the Epstein circle. For years, the public has been told that these two men were simply social acquaintances in the high society Florida scene. But as more files are unsealed, the narrative is beginning to fracture. We're talking about more than just shared photos at Mar-a-Lago. We're talking about flight logs that place some of the most powerful political players on the Lolita Express, and whispers of private meetings that were never meant to see the light of day. While the former president has publicly distanced himself, claiming he threw the guy out of his club years ago, the internet's deepest investigators are pointing to a much darker possibility. There are allegations circulating in the most protected corners of the whistleblower community that these trips weren't just about meetings or business deals. They point to something far more ancient and far more terrifying. We're talking about rumors of a forbidden vitality, a dark belief that the global elite were participating in rituals that go beyond human comprehension. Some claim that the island wasn't just a place for typical depravity, but a site for the consumption of life force. These theories suggest that high-level figures were allegedly seeking a way to reverse the clock, using the most horrific means possible to maintain their youth and power. They talk about the dark consumption, the idea that by participating in rituals involving the most innocent souls, these powerful men could allegedly stay young, vibrant, and untainted by the passage of time. It sounds like a script from a psychological horror film, yet these rumors of rituals for longevity have persisted for decades. The theory suggests that the elite didn't just want money, they wanted immortality. They allegedly sought out a specific essence, a life essence found only in the deepest recesses of the innocent, believing it could act as a literal fountain of youth. While the mainstream media treats these claims as internet madness, Jim Caviezel's warnings about monsters who use children as currency take on a much more literal meaning when you consider these allegations. If these powerful figures were truly traveling to that island to participate in the consumption of the forbidden, to cheat death itself, then we aren't just looking at a criminal network, we're looking at a group that has abandoned their humanity entirely.
Trump is absolutely covering something up. Because they were friends for 2 decades. They ran in the same social circles, both in New York and Palm Beach. They were photographed together constantly. There's video of them ogling women together. There's testimonials from Epstein's victims about incredibly creepy behavior of like Epstein walking in Manhattan with a woman, stopping by Trump's office, acting disgusting around these young women. Trump flew on Epstein's plane. One of Epstein's victims was recruited while working at Mar-a-Lago. There's the quote that I feel like I have to read every time we talk about this from New York Magazine in 2002, where Trump said, "I've known Jeff for 15 years. Terrific guy. He's a lot of fun to be with. It's even said that he likes beautiful women as much as I do, and many of them are on the younger side. No doubt about it." The New York Times reported over the weekend that Trump hosted a calendar curl competition in 1992, and the only other guest was Jeffrey Epstein.
That is the strangest report.
Old calendar girl competition, but only one other guest trick.
Yeah. So like, yeah, it's like
The turning point for many people was when the Epstein files were finally unsealed. For years, Oprah's name had been whispered in the same breath as the Lolita Express, but the mainstream media always dismissed it as a conspiracy theory. However, when the court documents finally surfaced, the name Oprah Winfrey appeared in contexts that left the public demanding answers. We're talking about travel details and flight logs that allegedly connect her inner circle to the movements of Epstein's private jet. Now, being on a list isn't the same as being convicted of a crime, but in the world of high-stakes influence, your associations are everything. When your name shows up in the same files as a man who made his fortune from the most disgusting trade on earth, you owe the public an explanation.
I think it was on that day that I mean, for the first time I recognized that I was not to blame, because I became a promiscuous teenager. And as a result of that, got myself into a lot of trouble and believed that I was responsible for it. It wasn't until I was 36 years old, 36, that I connected the fact, oh, that's why I was that way. I always blamed myself. Even though intellectually I would say to other kids, I would speak to people and say, oh, the child is never to blame. You're never responsible for life. I still believed I was responsible somehow, that I was a bad girl.
But Oprah didn't give an explanation. Instead, she did what she always does when things get too close to home. She went completely silent. She retreated to her massive estate, hoping the storm would blow over like all the others. But this time, it's different. People have been digging into the flight logs of the Lolita Express, and they're finding a pattern of travel that is impossible to ignore. There are alleged connections between the people Oprah promoted and the people who were frequenting that island. It's as if every road in Hollywood leads back to the same dark destination. Jim Caviezel points out that this silence is the loudest thing about the whole situation. When you have billions of dollars and all the resources in the world to clear your name, yet you choose to say nothing, it tells the world that you have something to hide. The gatekeeper is finally being asked to open the gate, and she realizes she doesn't have a key that can lock out the truth anymore.
The criticism in the beginning was, you're wasting all of that money on just 400 girls. Well, on 400 and then another 400 and then another 400 and another 400. I will tell anybody who chooses to criticize it, not a dollar has been wasted.
If the Epstein connection was an isolated incident, maybe we could give Oprah the benefit of the doubt, but the pattern goes back much further. Let's talk about 2007, when Oprah opened her Leadership Academy for Girls in South Africa. It was marketed as her crown jewel, a sanctuary for underprivileged girls to receive a world-class education. But almost immediately after the ribbon-cutting ceremony, the sanctuary turned into a nightmare. A dormitory matron named Virginia Makopo was arrested and charged with 14 counts of indecent acts against underage students. The details were horrific, involving the very children Oprah claimed to be protecting. While Oprah stood in front of cameras and claimed to be shaken to her core, the legal battle that followed told a much messier story. Makopo, the accused matron, actually filed a defamation lawsuit against Oprah, claiming that Winfrey's public statements unfairly suggested she was covering up the wrongdoings. They ended up settling out of court, and as usual, the details were scrubbed and kept from the public. But the rumors didn't stop there. Over the years, stories have surfaced about numerous girls simply disappearing from the academy. There have even been whispers of mass graves on the school grounds, claims that are so dark they seem impossible, yet no mainstream investigation has ever been launched to disprove those claims. Oprah has never provided a full accounting of what happened to those girls. She just shut the door and moved on to her next project. Jim Caviezel argues that this is the classic playbook. Build a charity to gain moral authority, use that authority to hide the darkness, and then use your media power to make sure no one asks questions.
They're not doing their job, especially when 85,000 children crossed the border this last year and disappeared. Where did they disappear to?
And the reason why it irritates me is because it means that somebody must think I'm lying. That's number one. Number two, why would you want to hide it? That is not the way I run my life.
Perhaps the most damning evidence of Oprah's role as the unofficial enabler is her long-standing friendship with the two biggest villains in modern entertainment history, Harvey Weinstein and Sean Diddy Combs. For decades, Oprah and Weinstein were inseparable. They were photographed together at every major event, whispering in each other's ears and laughing like old high school friends. She gave him access to the most exclusive parties in the world, essentially acting as his moral passport. As British actress Katie Noble revealed in a lawsuit, if you were a young woman being preyed upon by someone like Weinstein and you saw him with Oprah, the world's mom, you felt safe. You assumed he was a good guy because Oprah wouldn't associate with a monster, right?
Katie met Harvey. She met Harvey with Oprah.
With Oprah?
With Oprah. So Katie, and she talks about this in an interview, and before the trial, during the trial, we'll play the whole interview. She talks about the fact that if Oprah's with Harvey, then why should I worry about it? I mean, Oprah is like the world's mom. Who is not going to trust the person who's next to Oprah?
And he was with people in which I admired dearly. He was with Naomi Campbell. He had Oprah Winfrey there with him, who entered the room and was swinging off his arm and just seemed like a very dear friend. And these, like Oprah, Naomi, Rita, and Georgina, they all sat at his table. And for me, meeting Oprah was like, oh my God, like I would have thought that I would have to be someone who's established, who everyone would have had to know about before I was privileged enough to meet someone like Oprah. So that gave me so much confidence in him at the time when he approached me. I thought, obviously, this man has something amazing in store for me.
Noble's experience showed exactly how this system worked. Weinstein would literally swing Oprah off his arm to gain the trust of his victims. He used Oprah's reputation to lure women into a false sense of security before he committed his horrific acts. And when the truth finally came out, what did Oprah do? She didn't apologize for being the PR face for a monster. Instead, she stood up at the Golden Globes, put on a black dress, and gave a speech about believing survivors. She jumped on the Me Too bandwagon and rebranded herself as the solution to a problem she had helped facilitate for 30 years. And then there's Diddy. As the recent raids on Diddy's properties have revealed a world of trafficking and freak-offs, photos have resurfaced of Oprah at her most legendary and infamous parties. Again, no one is saying she was participating in the crimes, but the question remains, how could the most informed woman in the world be so consistently uninformed about the monsters in her own living room? Jim Caviezel believes it's not ignorance, it's an alliance. You don't get to be that powerful in Hollywood without knowing exactly who is doing what to whom. You just choose which stories to tell and which ones to bury.
Let's talk about what's happening with Harvey Weinstein. I know you posted on Facebook already, but you haven't kind of spoken yet publicly about what's going on.
I think that this is, I'm always trying to look for the rainbow in the cloud, whatever is the silver lining. And this is what I do know for sure. When something this major happens, when you have the fallout, 50 women coming forward, that it's a watershed moment. And what I do believe is actually happening is that, first of all, it's triggering a lot of unreleased pain, repressed anger, guilt, and suffering that a lot of women have had.
If you still think Oprah is just a victim of bad friends, let's look at the case of John of God. This was a Brazilian faith healer who claimed he could perform miracles and cure terminal illnesses. Oprah didn't just mention him, she dedicated multiple episodes of her show to him. She flew to Brazil, promoted him to millions of viewers, and gave him a global platform that he never could have reached on his own. Because of Oprah's validation, thousands of desperate women flocked to Brazil to seek healing from this man.
I don't know what happened. These are entities. They don't have any form. They're just these spirits that enter his body. It's been going on for 40 years to 25 million people.
Okay, so tell me this. Does he tell you a certain time to lay down, a certain way to lay down?
No, just go to bed, wear white, just wear, everything is white, drink the water, take the herbs, and don't have, and don't eat spicy food, and don't eat pork. But basically, that's it.
Years later, the truth came out, and it was devastating. John of God was exposed as a serial predator who had used his position of spiritual authority to abuse over 300 women. He was eventually sentenced to decades in prison for his crimes. And what was Oprah's response? A brief statement saying she was saddened by the news. But here's the problem. Oprah has an army of researchers, fact-checkers, and producers. Their entire job is to do due diligence before putting someone in front of a global audience. Yet she put a serial monster on her show without checking his background, or she did check it and didn't care. Caviezel points out that this is a recurring theme. Oprah provides global validation to people. They use that validation to create a pool of victims, and when they get caught, she moves on like nothing happened. At some point, you have to stop calling it a mistake and start calling it a strategy.
My intention, Dr. Oz, was always to please. The reason I said yes is because I don't want you to be upset with me. The reason I gave you the money is because I don't want you to say, oh, she's stingy. She don't know how to, she's not kind to people. She doesn't share. So she's not nice. So my intention was to make people think I was nice or allow them to feel that I was nice.
She is the ultimate gatekeeper, the woman who decides which stories are true and which ones are conspiracies. But the gate is finally being pushed open. The pattern is impossible to ignore. From Harvey Weinstein to John of God to the Epstein files, the same names keep appearing in the same dark circles. Jim Caviezel didn't just play a hero in a movie. He decided to become a target in real life because he believes the truth is worth more than a career. So what do you think? Is Oprah Winfrey just an unfortunate associate who happened to make some very bad friends for 40 years? Or is she the most powerful enabler in the history of the world, finally being exposed by a man who refused to stay silent? The gatekeepers are losing control, and the storm Jim Caviezel promised might be closer than we think. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Do you believe the world's mom is finally facing her own reckoning? Make sure to hit that subscribe button because the truth is coming out and you don't want to be left in the dark. I'll see you in the next one.